March 2020. And I don't know, presumably Peter Bryan is with us?
I am. I'm right here.
Hello, Peter. You're sounding crystal clear. Fire away while you still do.
Cut will be good. Look, the bottom line
That
is
didn't
we
last
felt
long.
it best to get a snap.
No, I just can't hear you. I'm really sorry. There is something really bad about this technology, and I'm not going to go through another session like this. Again, this is a performance exceptions report. I mean, it really ought to be heard in public. So, look, what am I going to do? I think we're going to have to take another adjournment, Joe, because I mean we can't operate on this basis.
Yep.
Thanks very much, and we're going to continue with the Performance Exceptions Report, March 2020, item 16 on our agenda, and the last item that we'll be dealing with in this public session of the Council. I do apologise for the technical difficulties. It is very challenging, but I'm just going to hand over to the Chief Executive, because I think the Performance Exceptions Report always presents us with a bit of a challenge in understanding the different functions of the organisation and how we monitor performance. So perhaps if I could hand over to you, Dawn, just for a little summary about how we could deal with this better in the future.
Thank you, Mayor. And I think that's a very valid question that you have raised. This is a collective report that Peter Ryan brings to Council. And in reality, it's not, although it's in his name, it's not his report in that sense. We need to make the connection between our elected members, the public, and the officers responsible for the areas of activity. So I'd like to have a conversation with members to see how we can make that far more meaningful than the current way that we are doing it, because we end up in this sort of tautological discussion without getting to the meat of the issues, whether it's to celebrate success or to deal with performance that is not moving in the right direction. The only other comment I would make is obviously this exception report as well is coming at a time where we've had COVID-19, so a number of areas of performance will undoubtedly have been impacted by the lockdown at level 4. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Thanks very much. And just the one other item that I'll add to this is that although some of the letters, some of the performance expectations relate to our CCOs, like Christchurch NZ, we need to ensure that their letter of expectations is updated, and also that that their statements of intent are addressed as well. And that will be an item that we'll consider at next week's meeting. It was an item for this week's agenda, but I've moved it to next week because it does require some substantial preparation for actually responding to the realities of COVID-19 as well. So I really appreciate the fact that Councillor Johansson was about to raise some of these issues, but if I could hand over to you, Yanni, because I know that you had a couple of questions that you'd like to ask. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Just happy to hear that we'll get the information about our subsidiaries, so we'll save that for next week. I was just on page 139, there is a comment regarding our cemeteries, and I know previously that staff really did a lot of work to try and improve the presentation of our cemeteries, but in the target that we've got, we're aiming for greater than 85%. We're hitting 65%, and it is a bit hard to tell from this report, you know, where we're going backwards in terms of specific cemeteries. But I note in the comments it says that there's going to be a new discussion about levels of service targets, and that there's some difficult to manage cemeteries such as Littleton, and a review of resource allocation. So I was just wondering if we can get a little bit more information about what work has been happening on cemeteries. Previously, when we've had that work, I understand there's been an improvement, so it is a little bit disheartening to see it going backwards, and it would just be really good to understand maybe a little bit more specifically about why it's gone backwards.
Sure, look, I'd be happy to go back to Parks and get that for you and bring it back.
Yeah. And the second question was around PT, where I think it's on page 134, where we've not met our PT measure around people choosing to travel by bus. And again, it talks to a 3.4% decline, and I know there's a number of issues why it may be down, but in the remedial action, it discusses a number of interventions along Riccarton Road and proposals along Lincoln Road, but it doesn't give any reference to previous decisions that we've made around things like Main North Road bus priority, which, you know, was done on the basis to increase PT. So again, it may be that there's actually a need to understand a little bit better around where we've spent money, what the benefits have been or otherwise, versus just a quite generic response in the remedial action. So I would be quite keen just to get a bit more detail around what's happening with PT in terms of where we've actually spent money, and what benefits have actually accrued, because we can't tell from this, but we can tell we're missing our target. Thank you.
Yes, happy to do that. Under normal circumstances, we have the managers of each of these exceptions at a normal council meeting. Obviously, we're under extraordinary circumstances. I can't answer your question right now, but I can go away and get the answers.
It just does seem a bit blatant. I mean, it seems, sorry, not blatant, it seems a bit an obvious question to ask is around that main North bus priority, where we had a big debate at council around the expenditure and the value of it. And it's I just find it a bit strange that it's not mentioned in the remedial action, given that was quite a significant investment. Thanks.
I think it's a really good point, Yanni, and I think one of the matters for us really to ask for some update on is how the joint committee's operating. I mean, I've said on so many occasions now that until we've got the decision making aligned between ECAN's investment in the bus infrastructure, then the infrastructure decisions that we made don't really have a strong enough business case to support them. So it's like chicken and egg, which comes first, and it's not a very good function in there, and we haven't delegated any of our authority, and of course ECAN can't delegate its authority. Well, they can now, but in terms of timing, we now have to rethink how do we make that role between Christchurch, Waimakariri and Selwyn and the interface in relation to public transport. How do we now make that work? And we've got some opportunity to do that now. Right, so would someone like to move that the report be received? Andrew Turner. Seconded. Sarah Templeton. I saw a hand go up. So I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no.
Aye.
That's carried. Thank you. And the last item is